Discord.
For
Okay.
sure. I can just go really quickly first. I just quit one of my part-time jobs, so I'm no longer working 7 days a week. And my other job actually wants me to help them do like creative stuff, so I'm gonna be redoing their website. Um, it's a tea place, but I'll be helping them do like content design for like their social media, the website redesign, and moving forward, probably might do like a hybrid, not part-time but not full-time role with them between like serving tea and actual like design stuff. So
Wow, that's awesome.
yeah. If you're ever in the Bay Area, slide through. I get you free drinks. Usually they're like $8, $9 for one.
Um, I forgot I'm gonna be in the Bay Area on Sunday. If you guys want to do a meetup at some point, um, I'm gonna be like near the airport area, like Daly City, Bay, on Sunday between 12 and 7 p.m. or something. I could
Mm,
probably meet up for like boba. Yeah, because I have dinner and lunch plans.
for sure. I'll be at work, unfortunately, but if you
You
slide
can
to
say
work,
hi. Okay, where are you staying? Or where are you working?
it's at Cupertino. The place is called Chicha. I'll just put it in.
Yeah. $9 for boba? Is it that good?
I think it's pretty decent. I serve tea in the back of the room, like traditional style. So it's
Uh-huh.
like a different. Yeah. If you let
Oh,
me know
they
what time, I can hold down like a spot for you to taste the tea because it's like 5 people per session every like 20, 30 minutes.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
It's like a
oh
legit tea.
shoot. All
It's like
right.
they serve with like these tea espresso machines, but I do like traditional tea tasting in the back. Like I give you an education on the tea leaves and shit, and you can have a nice cup of tea.
Wait, it'd be so cool if you could be part of the experience through you can teach me about tea. Oh, well, this would be pretty cool. So they have a place in San Gabriel?
Cupertino and San Gabriel and Roland, I think.
Okay. I forgot who for PDF lives in South Bay
Yeah, there's a couple of
besides you
us.
two. Didn't you guys do like a hangout? I forgot if it happened.
No,
No, we never. We
maybe
kept
next
on
week.
rescheduling. We kept on, and then
All right.
eventually, it's just me and Chris, and then me and Chris never haven't even seen each other in like 2 months.
Oh, I feel like people are really lazy in California. That's actually I did coordinate a San Francisco hangout, and I think a lot of people came actually. Maybe I need to be there or something. I don't know. I know like it took
I remember that.
forever for me and Athena to meet up with each other. And she's like, I'm sorry, I'm just lazy. I live in Foster City and I'm super lazy. I've seen her like so many times in New York now.
Mm.
Yeah. As for
Okay.
my PD, I'm still catching up on like my recordings of the the usability testing. I hope to, since I have off days next week before I start my role after the one I quit, I'm gonna like make sure I have all of that for the next session. Hmm.
Okay. I thought you did do the usability test findings already. Or are you just like going through them again?
Yeah, I'm compiling the information. That's what I'm going through. Mhm.
Okay. All right. Cool. How are things on your end, John and Tracy?
So I finished I took a stab at the Pechacucha
Did you do
exercise.
the story arc thing first though?
Oh yeah. I did the whole
Oh, okay,
like story
okay.
arc. Yeah, I did
I was
that
gonna
first.
say your
So I
Patrick
did
is a
that.
big part of that. Oh, sweet. That's pretty good. Okay.
Yeah. So I did the story arc, did the Pechacucha, and then after I present today, I'll probably put the words on, and then next week, hopefully, we'll have the actual presentation ready.
Oh, wow. Okay. That was pretty fast. Yeah, let me know if you want to look at the story arc. Maybe it wasn't that hard for you. I think people actually it's hit or miss. sometimes it can be easy for people, sometimes it can be hard.
Yeah, no, in the beginning when I looked at the assignment, I actually like just got so stuck, and then like eventually I kind of broke it up and just like looked at the first week, second week, and I was like, okay, this is like a lot more doable. But
Oh, okay.
yeah.
You mean by looking at the first week and second week, like the things you did in the course, or
Yeah, just looking at everything just in chronological order. Through I think the coda really, really helps. If I didn't have the coda, I feel like yeah. Yeah, the code just really helps because it documents everything, especially the problem framing part, because I feel like that's definitely the most important part in terms of like research. So, and then also like just going over the code made me realize like certain things where I was like, oh, this is definitely like a highlight that I would consider like definitely where I shine here and there. So
yay? Okay, that makes me happy to hear that it wasn't so bad. Um, there's never an easy way to write portfolio. I always hate it. I've been doing it for so long. I feel like I have to update my portfolio like pretty frequently,
mm.
and it always sucks. It's never a good time. Sometimes it's fun, but
It's I feel like it's fun because you're kind of yeah, it's exactly like you said, like you're telling a story and you want to make it like
yeah,
a fun story. So
I think it can be fun at times, but then I think it's more like the hardest part for me is getting started and doing the story arc. I think that once I do that, then I think the other tasks can feel kind of boring because it's like, oh, I have to hunt for this mock-up. Oh, I lost it. Ah, okay.
yeah,
So it's more like you're gonna have to hunt things down. But if you're organized, maybe it won't be as hard. But I hate that part. Okay. All right. Cool. Tracy, how are things on your end?
Hello. So this week I mostly just worked on making a couple more different like visual design iterations for like certain like features. I wouldn't say I didn't do too much work this week, not as much as I would have liked, but I think my goal for next week is to finish more like finalize screens and to also probably start prototyping everything. Yeah, that's like my goal for next week is
I
to
feel like
finalize
you kind
visual
of.
and
Oh, I was gonna say, I feel like you kind of already started prototyping.
oh
Yeah.
oh really? Okay. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
about it. My stuff. And probably later on in the call, I'll probably just ask for like feedback in terms of like there's some things that I need like a bit more ideas on, I guess.
Okay.
So I'll probably ask for feedback on that.
All right. Sweet. Thank you. Does anyone want to present stuff to get feedback?
I can go ahead
Okay.
and present first, you guys.
Hold on.
Can you guys all see this okay?
Yeah.
All right. Um, okay, so hey everyone, welcome to my presentation. Today I'll be talking to you about reducing decision fatigue on Airbnb. So for my case study, the reason why I chose Airbnb as for my case study is because I'm in the business of curating spaces. I currently work in the architecture industry, and I feel like Airbnb really aligns with what I do in terms of like curating spaces and also curating experiences that those spaces can afford. Wait. Oh yeah. Okay. So I did a little bit of digging into Airbnb, and I used ChatGPT sort of as a first starting area to see what the problem areas could be. And I looked through Airbnb's search journey and kind of found that there's a lot of work that's required from the user. So you do sorry, how do you like hide the user? Okay. All right, so on the left here, you see that there is a you put in your search query, and then you have all these results. And for each result, you have to go through all these listing details that you see on the right hand portion. And sorry. And so the issue here is that people have to research listings and find a lot of extra context about these listings for multiple listings, and it's just overall a very tedious process. So I did some research among user interviews, and I found some pain points related to sorry, I'm going completely blank right now. But so I did some
You're
research
awesome.
onto users, and pretty much I found that the biggest problem is that people have to do a lot of extra steps when it comes to evaluating listing. The first major pain point is that when people are collaborating with their travel group, they have to do a lot of coordination outside of Airbnb. So if you look at this visual, I was planning a trip to Lake Tahoe a couple years ago, and we were trying to figure out which Airbnb to go to. And people were sending in links, sending in all these different Airbnbs. And we were discussing like all these menial details that at the end of the day, we never ended up going on this trip because it was just very hard to coordinate because we had to figure out an Airbnb that everyone would be down to pay for, and we couldn't figure that out. So this whole process, which is very tedious and just made the whole trip itself very cumbersome. The second way in which it's very overwhelming for a user to evaluate a listing is that they have to do a lot of extra due diligence outside of Airbnb. This visual right here is a Google search query that I made a couple weeks ago when I was planning a trip to Redding in California. And in order to figure out whether this listing was a good listing for us, I had to figure out where the listing was on Airbnb, which only gives you like a general area of where the listing might be. And I had to sort of cross-reference that, go to Google Maps, and then pinpoint where that listing might be on Google Maps, and then look for things to do nearby on Google Maps, Expedia, Yelp, and that whole process, which is so many steps in so many different areas, all to do with just one listing out of the hundreds of listings that you're browsing through in the given search query. And this kind of all comes together in the last pain point, which is that people have a lot of trouble comparing listings and the details of multiple listings. So just think of all the details you see here, right? This isn't even the whole breakdown of what a listing can provide you. You click into a listing and you're provided with the photos, with the details of what amenities they have, the reviews, where general location of where it might be. You're provided with all these details, but the issue is that it's not digestible. You're provided with all these details across multiple listings that not only is it not digestible in its on its own, but it's very hard to compare the bulk of this information with another listing or the other listings that you might be considering. So in order to address this, we want to create an experience for users that's we want to create a experience for users where we're reducing the number of steps that's required to book a listing. We want to make this process kind of similar to how you would interact with a travel agent. You go up to a travel agent, you start a conversation about what your preferences are, where you want to go, what you want to do there, and the travel agent sort of takes care of everything for you. It's a one-stop shop for all your problems and all your needs. I want to replicate that experience to Airbnb, where you shouldn't have to go to Google Maps, you shouldn't have to go to Expedia, go to all these different websites in order to figure out whether the listing is even worth it. So I did some iterating upon some ideas and explored a breadth in 3 different directions. So the first direction was trying to address the pain point of not having enough or not being able to what was the pain point? Sorry. the pain point here was that people don't have enough context about listings. And so on the left here, I wanted to provide users with a lot of autonomy. I wanted to give users a lot of control into what kind of experience they want to curate for themselves and what kind of listing they're looking for, or what kind of area they want to be in. On the right side, I wanted to kind of more intelligently serve the user and take away some of that autonomy and just implement more defaults in terms of asking the user what they might want to do. The second idea, or the second solution for the pain point of not having enough context about a listing's location, was providing some sort of like card that provides context about a listing's location. So on the left here, I decided to provide the minimal amount of context. So just providing them a location score, as you can see right here, compared to the right side where you're providing a lot more context. You're telling them what there is to do nearby, whether it's accessible by public transit, whether it's safe, and also the activities there are to do nearby. The third solution was to address the problem of collaboration. On the left side, we have a bottom-up approach or top-down approach where the leader of the travel group has more control over what discussion is being, or what listing is being chosen. So there's not a lot of room for discussion. It's just more of like people liking posts and the group leader takes that into account. Versus the right side where everyone has a say. It's a more bottom-up approach where people all have a say in what kind of listing they want to rank, and then whatever comes on top at the end of the day is what listing they go with. And so this brings me to the ideal state, which is the first part is providing more context about a listing's location. So when you click this button right here, on the bottom right-hand corner of the listing, you'll be provided with this card that provides you information about a listing's location. First thing is providing a little map that you can click into to see more things to do nearby and whether it's accessible by public transit. 3 scores to reflect the rating of how desirable this is based on things to do nearby, convenience, and safety. And at the end, a host provided blurbs of details about the listing's location. And then when you swipe up, you can see activities to do nearby. So slowly you start to get more context. And when you click on these 3 ratings, things to do, convenience, and safety, you're led to these respective pages, which provide you more details about things to do nearby, more details about convenience, whether it's accessible by walking, public transit, biking, and also safety, which will, which is about safety, whether the location is safe or not. And so yeah, that explains the first part. The reason why I decided to develop this feature as much as I did was because,
Okay, I'm gonna ask you questions kind of like what we would do in a portfolio review. So
Okay.
I noticed that here you say convenience, walk, or transport. It's very detailed here. Was there any research that you did to inform your decisions here? Because it seems quite nuanced about these different scores. And secondly, how would you be able to provide this information for every listing?
Okay. So to answer your question broadly, the reason why I focused so much on the listing's location was because during my initial interviews, every single user reported that location was very important in terms of they wanted to find an Airbnb listing that had a desirable location, and also that
You define what's desirable though.
Yeah, so for example, one of my users, they reported that they found a nice Airbnb, but it was really far away from any nearby public transit. And so that kind of just made the listing, like not, they didn't consider it anymore because that was like a deal breaker. And so things in terms of that, I realized that people take into account whether what there is to do nearby in a listing or whether the listing is like accessible. And so that's the reason why I decided to focus on these 3 different categories. And for the first one, this page, Brian's guidebook, is an already existing feature of Airbnb that I'm just linking to things to do. which just makes sense because I mean, yeah, this is literally just things to do. The second one, convenience. A lot of users during my interviews reported that they consider whether a listing is accessible by walking, biking, or public transit, because not all the time you're going to have a car. You know, it's going to be very different setting every time. So I wanted to make this page as accessible as possible in terms of for whatever trip you're going on. You might be walking, you might be taking the bus, or you might be biking. And I pulled this data from WalkScore, which is a sort of public database of that rates a location, and it's walking score, transit score, bike score. And it's like pretty reputable. Like Zillow uses it to rate their homes. And yeah, for safety, this was kind of tricky because I was originally going to include a heat crime map, or like a rating of how much crime there is in the neighborhood. But eventually I realized that there was too much room for bias in terms of saying an area is unsafe isn't necessarily like the greatest thing you want to put on the safety page for many reasons, primarily because things like crime is always changing. It's a very dynamic concept, and so you don't want to say a place is unsafe because like it may make it just like causes a lot of risk for like bias and discrimination. And the second part of that is that you don't want to say a listing is unsafe, because at the end of the day you want someone to book the listing, and so you don't want to deter your users away. So what I did instead here is I created these host provided safety blurbs where the host can tell you recommendations to be safer, and also reviews that are the reviews that are shown below convenience and safety are related to convenience and are related to safety in their respective. And to answer your second question, the ratings would be user generated and come from user reviews. The reason for that is because originally I wanted to have it as part of a general database, but I realized that these numbers are always going to change. The location desirability is always going to change. And so you kind of want to keep these numbers as relevant to the people that are staying at the Airbnb.
Right. Thank you.
So moving on, the second feature that I decided to implement was to address the problem of not enough collaboration. So for this approach, I decided to go with the more bottom or top-down approach, where there's less autonomy for your travel group. The reason for that is because during my interviews, I found you can either be the primary planner or you can be sort of the more travel group participant, where you'll provide input here or there, but most of the time it's not going to be a full-fledged discussion of all the details. So I wanted to make that interaction as minimal as possible by including a like count. So people in your travel group can come into your wish list and like listings, and in that way you can sort of see who in your travel group likes this listing, who in your travel group doesn't like listing. And the third and last feature was this trip tailor, which provides you a sort of guided journey to provide you search results more in like a smarter way. So you go through this journey, you click on where you want to go. So on this, you go to California, September 27 to 30, with through people, and then you're provided with this button on the bottom here saying need help tailoring. And when you click on it, you can answer a couple questions to sort of refine your search in a different way. So instead of cutting the cake like halfway down, you can sort of cut it sideways. So you're cutting the cake in different ways to provide you with a smaller pool, which reduces the amount of decisions you have to or reduces the amount of listings you have to go through in order to get to the listing that you want. And the prompts that I ask is, how do you want to spend your time? So choosing your listing based on the activity or the nature of your trip, or what activity you want to do at your Airbnb. The second question I ask is, what do you value? And that's based off 3 categories: location, price, and amenities. and people will, or the listings will be sorted based on these categories. The third and then so based on the answers that they answer for what do you value, they'll be asked these follow-up questions for each location, price, and amenities. So they'll be asked, how are you getting around, to filter listings based on what's most accessible to your mode of travel. Second one is, what's your price range, to find an Airbnb that's within your budget, and amenities, to find an Airbnb that meets all the things that you need for the property. And eventually, after you solve all these, answer all these prompts, and you're provided with your search results, you'll have something here where it tells you how this listing performs based on your preferences. So here you can see this Airbnb matches all our preferences. I want to go to a place that has a lot of adventure related activities. Location, I'm going to be driving and walking. It's $30 below my budget and offers all the amenities. There's also other cases where it might not be a perfect match. It might have 3 out of the 5 amenities I want. It might be $20 above my budget, but the location is really, really good and really good for adventure, which will also be reflected. So it's not just when you have a perfect match, it's able to balance trade-offs and provide you with a lot of different options that could meet your expectations or could meet your needs. And so yeah, so scoping this out, first stage of building the solution out would be to just develop the location card by itself. The reason why I chose this is because this location card you see here is just a redesign of another one of Airbnb's features, which is when a host is staying with you, it'll have like a host guidebook, and this is sort of what it looks like. And so it's just reapplying these UI elements. The only new feature here would be this map element, but that is already just it would just link to this map right here. So this feature itself would be pretty easy to implement in terms of engineering effort. I think once we find that a lot of people are using this location card, we can now move on to building out those pages of things to do, convenience, and safety, because people actually want to know about the location. Once we receive enough engagement here about how much people care about learning about a listing on Airbnb, or providing context about a listing on Airbnb, we can now go to approach like the problem with collaboration of not having enough context about your group sentiment about a listing. So yeah, and that brings us to the next step, which is now this is probably going to take the most engineering effort, because this uses AI and ML in order to filter your results based on these prompts. So this is why I put this last. This is when, if people are really interested in or if people really need more context about a listing's location, or they're just having trouble finding listings, then we get to this part where we're sort of cutting the cake in a different way and approaching trip planning a different way by asking different questions rather than just where do you want to go, what dates, and how many people. And the last stage would be to sort of add more prompts to this trip tailor in order to refine your search even further, and also creating this personalized section where you now have something to refer back to your preferences. And this brings me back to the solution, which is eventually we want to make this experience similar to talking to a travel agent. You go there and you tell them what you need, what your needs are, what your preferences are, and he or she will provide you with the best listing that that could meet your needs. And so it's a one-stop shop. You don't have to ask anybody else. It's sort of like you go to Airbnb for all your needs, and it'll answer all the questions that you have. So that's pretty much it. The biggest takeaway I would say is you can never go too deep into researching or solving a problem. I think it actually comes like you have to constantly bounce back between like depth and breadth. So you explore a breadth of ideas, then you like go deep, and then you just keep going back and forth until you kind of find that sweet spot. And I think that balance also occurs like when you're thinking about like tying back to your user reviews and then your design intuition, because not all the time you're gonna have enough research data. Because I only interviewed like 5-6 people, and so at some point you're gonna have to use like your design intuition combined with like justifying your design decisions by like tying back to your research. So yeah, I think that's it. So that was a really
Yay!
long, yeah.
All right. All right, go through this.
Yeah. The first 2
Okay.
minutes, I was like blanking out.
That's how you practice it.
Yeah.
All right. So for strength, I really like that you gave a personal example about why your trip didn't work out. Um, going to your lady arrow growth. This was really subtle, but I think you should just call it like a Tahoe trip, just because I don't know, people might find it unprofessional because it's a Tahoe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's really subtle. I think you did a good job of explaining that users like go on Google Maps and they cross-reference one thing, and I like that you said now where you basically say like, well, here's the problem that we have here. Now, if we do this at scale, that's really bad. I think you did a really good job of showing your breadth of exploration. I like that you just didn't show us like five and then have us like try to process what they all are, which is typical of people too. I like that it was like here's two, and I can see the breadth by you explaining that like the contrast. Um, yeah, I think you had a good answer about like why you would have the convenience breakdown. You give the example like, oh, this person didn't think it's successful enough for her, so she ruled us out, or they did. I think something that kind of relates to your growth. I think in your presentation, it was hard to see what was your research. I don't think you have to be super in depth about it, but it was just hard to know what did you learn that you didn't already know, and then how did that contribute to all your decisions later. I think when I ask you about it, you can be there, but I think you could be more proactive because I think it just wasn't clear what was the research. Uh, yeah, what was the research and what did you learn?
Yeah, I think during when I was making a presentation, I was kind of confused because when I was explaining, because you know how before it was like, when you research the problem, it's like I just kind of came into it like I'm gonna redesign Airbnb. So I think looking back now, I think maybe how I should have structured it is like starting off with initially I thought it was people had trouble comparing listings, and then I did research and found out that wasn't just a problem; it was like a lot more than that.
I think
Um,
that's even more interesting of a story because people like stories that are like, it was like going this way, and then they're like, well, what's this other direction?
yeah,
People
and I think
love reading, like learning about that kind of stuff.
yeah, I
Like
think the way
the
I framed it probably sounded like I already knew what the problem was, and I just confirmed it with my users. Like when I was saying, it, I was like, damn, like I literally just said all these pain points. Like even when I was saying the beginning, I was like, I had to stop myself. That's why I like got stuck because I was like, I don't want to explain it. That I'm just gonna re-explain in like probably like 2 minutes. But yeah,
okay. Okay, that's good that you recognize that. Some other things, I think, I know this is your first go around, so like it's hard to be punchy, and you'll notice like when I mean punchy, it means more to the point. So when you
yeah,
say, oh, the user has a lot of work to do, you can say the user is trying to find a listing that they and their group of people are aligned with in a fast amount of time. Like, but that takes, but there are a lot of hurdles because X, Y, and Z.
for sure.
So that's gonna be my like punchier.
Yeah,
I think you talked about like, oh, the users are trying to find extra context for multiple listings. So it's helpful to know the type of context, or like, oh, this is a context problem. I noticed this in PDF. People say people lack context. Like, okay, define context. What is context, or whatever you mean by that.
okay. Yeah,
So I think they could have been more defined. You could say people are trying to discover context on location and blah 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 blah. Other things, I think you said something about I forgot what goal you said. I think you had it early on. I think what you could say to make like rather than I think it's maybe like not necessarily like, oh, let's reduce the amount of steps. I think that's a part of it. There's something else that you said, I think that did steal our country. I think it seems like you're trying to reduce the amount of time it takes for people to feel confident and aligned with the decision. You're not just trying to like, get them to, it's not necessarily just to come to any decision, like quick decision. It seems like you're trying to filter these factors, look at it and be like, okay, we're gonna make a decision.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
something around that. And I think why I say time, I think time is important because in your research, right? If you take too long, maybe people get fatigued. Um, if people take too long, then the listing is gone and they start the process over. There are things that you could say there that will come back to your research that it just makes it feel like I feel the pain more and I feel the importance. I think that's something I think could be improved in your presentation. I think
Mm.
you've done it before in your previous presentations. I think if you need to go back to your past presentations, definitely do it. I feel like your past presentations felt like I felt the user problem more, and then I think this presentation felt more like here are a bunch of like mock-ups.
Yeah, yeah. I was
Yeah.
gonna ask, like, what's like the recommended time frame? Because so far I was using 7 minutes, but I'm like, is 7 minutes enough time to go over all those slides?
Oh no, you usually will have 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay.
20 is really pushing it. I only recommend 20 if you just have a meaty project. So, for my recent job interview, I had poised took 20 minutes because that was like a massive project. And then my Dropbox one took like 12 minutes.
Hmm. Okay.
I think it's more so like in a PDF setting, we're more so doing it like kind of like a little bit more accelerated.
Yeah.
But generally you would have like 12 minutes.
Okay.
I think that's really a good amount of time. Yep, that's the feedback so far. Thanks, Chris, for your feedback.
Yeah, I think the feedback's more like, since like you said, it's more accelerated in how we're doing the 7 minutes right now, but in terms of when you actually present, you have like 15 minutes, maybe 30, depending on how many case studies you're talking about.
Okay.
I recommend only doing 2 case studies. I did 3 once and that was like the one review that I did not pass. And I think I was cramming like way too much in a short amount of time. It also just that was not good.
It's like 40 minutes is usually how much you get.
Yeah. I mean it really depends. You have 16-minute ones, you have 45-minute ones. On rare occasions it's 30. But I mean I think usually budget for 15 minutes or less per case study.
Mhm.
Give or take 5 minutes.
Gotcha. Mhm.
I mean, there are always exceptions. You just tell yourself, why is this an exception? If everything's 20, 30 minutes, then obviously there's probably something wrong. Okay, thank you. Okay, Tracy, I know we wanted to make time for you to share your visual design stuff. Do you want to share it? Thanks for
Hi.
presenting. Done.
Yeah, good
I'll
job.
get better. It'll get better.
Okay.
Okay, so I didn't really do too much work over the past week, but some things I worked on. Well, this first part, I wanted to work on the kind of like the read extra tips or like read more section, where it's like a drop down where that user can expand to get like more additional insights, like information about like the things that they need to work on. So originally I had something like this where it basically be like you have like the overall tip and kind of like the things that are related to it, as well as like a brief description talking about like what is your like average compared to like the overall player base average in like your elo, just talking about like the specific numbers behind it and how you kind of like how you kind of compare. And then the read extra tips section had basically just like a spitball like list of like extra tips for improvement, but I felt like this wasn't exactly like the most useful for players, especially if they don't completely understand like what they're doing wrong or like what's like how these tips actually benefit them in terms of like their CSing in this case. So then I kind of made a different couple iterations, but this I have to like prototype myself, but I kind of like screenshot this from one of like leagues already existing. Like they have like a whole screen full of like little stats like this, which is basically comparing like your average versus the like your CS per minute average versus like the average player in like your elos average, just so you can get like a visual representation of the graph. And this is kind of like the game duration type of thing. So this is just like a more detailed view, although I think one thing is that it's a bit difficult to understand right away. But anyways, that's kind of like one of the ideas that I want to include. Instead of incorporating like a video section, I just want to stick like instead make like a little text link where a user could kind of click into it to watch like an insightful like video that could help them improve instead. And instead like replace that with some sort of like infographic kind of like representing their average compared to like a player's average. And then I came up with the different iterations on how to like visually place it, but I'm still very like unsure and like I think I'm like out of ideas or like it's hard for me to come up with ideas. But basically, I'll take this one actually. But basically, I wanted to give the player more context on what they might be doing wrong that is resulting in like their really low, in this case, their really low CS numbers. That's like what this entire tip is about, is that the player has low CS numbers. And I want to give more context or detail like on why the player might be having low CS numbers, which is ultimately kind of like impacting their overall performance. So I kind of want to go more deep. I want to be a bit more like deep in terms of like information I'm giving out. So a lot of this was like I also use ChatGPT to help me like word things, but basically I made like little um two more like insights bubbles, which is basically like, for example, ineffective roaming decisions, which is contributing to their low CS numbers, and then like bad recall time, which is also contributing to like their low CS numbers. So these are kind of like, and basically what this would like portray is that it's how like the player that they have a trend when they're performing that like this is kind of like some of like their trends that they're doing that is contributing to this to like their low CS numbers. And so that's kind of like what I wanted to do is just kind of like find like a deeper route towards like to just dive deeper into like the root issues of their performance. And then over here is kind of like a little tip on how they can actually improve on like the specific area, which should overall can help them like improve overall in terms of like the specific metric. And then over here is just kind of like a link towards like a video that could also help like act as like a guide or like a resource for the players. And yeah, those are kind of like the iterations I came up with. And then for like the strength section, I'm still really unsure of like how it might look still, because I assume like the strengths they don't necessarily need too many tips, I guess. So I still wanted to let them know like what they do well in specifically. Like why do they have a good vision score? It's because they have like number one, they have good word placements, especially during like objectives where like vision is very important in the game, as well as like the user also has really like effective vision denial, which is also contributing to them having like a very good vision score. So that's kind of like what I kind of like want to express, but right now it looks like a blob of text. So that is something that I'm still exploring. But yeah, that's what I have for this section. As well for like the post-game replay highlights, I was kind of like debating between two different ways on representing like the different clips in like the replay highlight section. So in over here was like the original idea I had, which is like basically utilizing League's already existing like timeline feature that they have here, but making it actually like making it so that the users can actually click into bubbles. And because they have like an actual visual representation like time, they can see like at what point a specific like clip happened throughout the game. And user would be able to click onto it and then like watch like the specific clip. And then over here is just be like little tags, like very like quick overview tags talking about like summarizing what happened. And then over here on the side is kind of like commentary almost, where it's kind of telling the player like what happened or like what went wrong, what went well. And how I envision this is that like while the clip is like playing, this highlight thingy would like change between like the different commentaries, just so that the user can like follow along. I also have like another version where it's like you just literally just have like clips and then like the user can kind of click into the clips. I think I also added in like maybe possible timestamps just so it's easier for like the player to remember at which point this clip happened in the game. But I think this version is a bit like it's a bit harder for like a player to visualize when a certain like highlight happened or a certain clip happened. And yeah, those are like the main things, like main adjustments I made. Yeah, I'd be open to feedback though.
Right, Emily. The okay. Oh, I will second Chris. I think I like seeing the clips more than the bubble because I don't think the bubble makes sense to me. I think the clips feel more visual. Uh, I just thought I do like the title. It kind of reminds me of YouTube. The YouTube, how you can like scan through chapters with like the visual timeline. That's what it reminds me of. Mhm. What I want to say, I love that you added a light bulb to break up the text for the tips. And I like the little video icon. It just makes it more clear what the resource is. So I really like that. I like that in the timeline clip, there's just more visual focus on what I'm looking at. And so I know like where I can navigate between the different highlights. Um, Other things I like that I know you're kind of stuck, so I can work with you more offline on this. I like that you tried having the text side by side, like for tips on how to improve. Uh, so I mean, good job doing that. I know last time we just talked about having like exploration, so I like there's some more. For some areas of growth, I noticed that it says, oh, you were CSing like 5.4 something more than before, but you had a graph that was hidden. I think it could be more interesting for people to see the graph right away because people are just naturally drawn to graphs. Hold on, my AirPods died. All right, sorry y'all. It's kind of loud now, so I don't have the noise canceling. My computer's decently charged, so I'm just gonna move to a quieter place. Hold on.
Should be quieter. Let's in the cafeteria. Okay. Yeah, I like the graph. I think it'd be just pretty cool if there was maybe a way to visualize it. That's just a thought. It could be just too much. So, maybe where it says like 5.4, where there's text, maybe there's a way to add color to the numbers just because we're trying to draw attention to it. Other things, I think that this still feels like there's a lot of text at once, and I think it's because you're showing all this detailed insights at once. Just a thought, maybe we could like try like little mini cards or something, and people can like expand it or flip it or something. Because I think showing all of them at once still feels like a lot. And then I think for the highlight, I noticed you talk about here's what happened and here's a tip. Maybe there could be more of like a structured paradigm where there's a way to separate here's what happened or here's what you did and then here's what you should do next. Because I think when they're squashed together, it feels like intimidating because there's a lot of text, but I think it also dilutes the focus on the tip that's gonna help the person. So those are some thoughts so far. Happy to chat offline more and come up with some ideas if you feel stuck. But yeah, anyone else want to comment or Tracy, you want to comment?
Yeah, I definitely like agree with like a lot of the points you mentioned. Like, there's definitely a lot of text, and when there's a lot of text, that only like scares people away. And I think that was like the original problems like League is that they have a bunch of like numbers thrown at you, a bunch of like information thrown at you, and it's a lot of players actually don't like look at these stuff because it's so overwhelming. So I'm not trying. So I should aim to like not like have like the same issue that League already has if I'm trying to find like a solution to it. So I definitely agree with all of like the points you mentioned.
Okay, yeah, we can play around with more ideas. Like one idea I have is like having like mini cards or something. We'll play around with it. Oh, okay, likes the bubbles. I think once I understood what the bubble was, I think the bubble is nice, but it took me some time to understand what the bubble is. I wonder if there's a way to combine both. Like I like that the bubbles indicate, oh, this is a really big moment or there's a lot of action. Whereas I do think the video clips just make everything look flat when that's not what's happening.
Mhm.
Yeah, before to somehow combine the two. All right, I gotta head out and get back home for dinner. But I miss you guys all. Well, we're gone for 1 week. That felt like a really long week. It's probably because I was traveling and doing a lot of stuff. But okay. Next week I'm gonna see if my friend can come. I might have a hard time balancing time zones, so I will figure out the time. But there will be a guest coming to hang out in coaching ball. Oh, yes, Radiance. All right, thanks for your feedback, everyone. All right, bye.
All right.